It was a stormy night, the kind where the wind howled through the trees like a wild animal trapped in a cage. The sky, an angry mass of swirling clouds, flickered with streaks of lightning, illuminating the desolate road ahead. The rain fell in sheets, pounding relentlessly against the windshield. The headlights of their car sliced through the dark like fragile beams of hope, but it was clear that this night would not be kind to Sarah and Mark. They had been driving for hours, hoping to reach a nearby town for shelter. But now, as the rain intensified and the engine sputtered, it was obvious that their luck had run out. "Great," Mark muttered, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "This is just what we needed." Sarah shivered, her eyes darting around the empty road. "Can't we just keep going? Maybe the rain will let up." "It's not the rain, the car's dead," he said, frustration seeping into his voice. "I'll check the engine. Stay here." Sarah nodded, though a knot formed in her stomach. She watched as Mark got out of the car, his silhouette swallowed by the night. The sound of the storm drowned out any other noise, and she felt as if the world itself had closed in around her. Then, the distant sound of a door slamming caught her attention. She looked towards the horizon but saw nothing. "Mark?" she called, her voice trembling, but the wind howled louder in response. After what felt like an eternity, Mark returned, his face pale. "There's no way we're getting this car started. We're gonna have to find shelter." Sarah's heart sank as the storm seemed to grow more violent, the winds threatening to pull the car off the road. "Where will we go?" Mark glanced nervously around. Through the heavy rain, he spotted something, a dark shape looming in the distance. It was an old, decaying mansion, hidden behind a line of twisted trees. "There," he said. "It's our best shot." The air inside the mansion was thick with the scent of mildew and rot. The heavy wooden door creaked as it slammed shut behind them, the echo of its closure reverberating through the empty halls. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with panic. "I don't know, but we need to find another way out of here," Mark replied, his voice tight with unease. They looked around. The mansion was vast, dark, and unsettling. Its once grand interior, now faded and decayed. The walls seemed to close in on them as they stepped forward, the floorboards groaning underfoot. The faint sound of dripping water echoed in the distance, adding to the ominous atmosphere. As they made their way deeper into the mansion, they found themselves at a crossroads. Before them stood a long hallway, at the end of which were 7 doors, each one appearing more sinister than the last. The doors were aged, their wood warped and cracked, as if they'd not been opened in decades. "We have to pick one," Sarah said, her voice a mixture of fear and uncertainty. "Which one?" Mark looked at the doors, his breath coming in shallow gasps. "I don't know, but we don't have much choice. Let's just hope one of them leads out." Sarah reached for the first door. As her hand touched the cold, splintered wood, a chill ran down her spine. She stepped back, her instincts screaming that this was not the way. "Let's try another one." Mark nodded reluctantly and they moved to the next door. The moment Mark touched the handle, the air grew thick and oppressive. The sound of something moving behind the door made them both freeze in place. "Did you hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice a strained whisper. Mark nodded, fear clouding his eyes. "We're not here alone." With trembling hands, they continued down the hallway, trying the other doors one by one. Each one felt wrong. Each one had its own strange presence, an overwhelming feeling that something was waiting on the other side. Finally, they came to the last door. "This one," Sarah said, her voice hollow. "We have to try it." Mark hesitated, Something about this door felt even worse than the others, but there was nowhere else to go. They had no choice but to try it. As they slowly turned the handle, the door creaked open, revealing a darkened room that reeked of decay. The moment they stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind them with a force that rattled their bones. The air grew cold, colder than before, and their breath became visible, forming tiny clouds in the thick darkness. Then the whispering started. Low at first, then louder, filling the room. Sarah's heart raced. "What is that?" Mark gripped her hand tightly. I don't know, we need to get out of here." But before they could move, the whispering turned into guttural murmurs, voices all around them, but no one was there. Mark, his face now pale with terror, pulled on the door, but it didn't budge. The voices grew louder, the air thicker, and a strange sensation of being watched consumed them both. Then, from the corner of the room, a figure stepped forward. It was a woman, her hair matted with blood, her face twisted in agony. Her eyes were wide, filled with an unbearable sadness. She reached out, her fingers grasping at the air. "You should not have come here," she whispered in a voice that sent chills down their spines. "You will never leave." In a panic, Sarah screamed, her voice cracking. "What do you want?" The woman's lips curled in a haunting smile. "Only to show you the truth." Before they could react, the ground beneath them shifted. The room spun, and they were no longer standing in a decaying chamber, but in a vast, dark labyrinth with 7 doors once again before them. "This isn't real," Mark whispered, his voice breaking as he looked around in disbelief. "No," the woman's voice echoed through the maze. "It's your fate, and one of these doors will be your salvation. But the others?" The whispering intensified as Mark and Sarah backed away, the heavy weight of the woman's gaze lingering on them. The doors now seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, as if alive. "Which one will you choose?" the woman asked softly, her face vanishing into the shadows. With no time to think, Mark grabbed Sarah's hand and they rushed towards the closest door. With a desperate push, they opened it and stumbled into a blinding light. When the light faded, they found themselves outside the mansion, drenched in rain but alive. Behind them, the mansion stood silent, as if nothing had ever happened. "Are we free?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Mark looked at the mansion one last time. "I think so, but I can't shake the feeling that we're not alone anymore." As they hurried away from the cursed place, the distant sound of whispering followed them, as though the mansion had never let them go at all.